episode of the Nighttime Show. Tonight, live at Genghis Cohen in the heart of Hollywood, it's me, Mike Black, the voice of the Nighttime Show, here with our head writer, Spooky Matt Walker, our very special guest who created Paranormal Activity, produced Insidious, and is currently launching a very spooky new app called Spot. It's Oren Peli, and the host of the Nighttime Show. Unlocked from a grave thousands of miles below the sea, it's the scariest, the spookiest, the creepiest, Steven Kramer Glickman!
That's right, folks. I love candy. You bet.
Oren,
Wow.
it is an honor and a pleasure to have you here, sir.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
What an insane career you have, and I only know what I know. Here's the thing is, Oren, I only know what I know. Okay, the first thing I know about is Paranormal Activity, right? Is there where do we go before that? How do we start? How does the story start? Start us at your. I want to know where you were born. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Israel.
Really?
Yep.
מה שלומך?
טוב תודה.
Hey, אני מדבר קצת עברית.
Oh, not bad, not bad.
Not bad. I learned Hebrew from an Israeli who taught me how to speak, and then every time I say I don't speak a lot of Hebrew, people go, it's bullshit. You sound like you speak Hebrew perfectly.
Your accent wasn't too bad. So
It's not bad.
yeah,
It's
you
not a
can pull
bad
it
accent.
off.
Yeah, I try. That's amazing. I didn't know you were born in Israel. That's incredible.
How do you think I have this accent? Just for fun?
Yes, I thought it was like a
It's just a generic
just a
Eastern European accent or some sort, I guess. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Can't tell.
Unlike me, I went to the DeVry Hebrew School.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that where you went?
Yeah, not bad.
Not bad. No, you're very good at it.
Very nice deli.
They got a great deli at
Really
DeVry.
good deli.
Really.
I learned like 4 words of Klingon, and that's close enough.
That's all
Almost
right.
the same.
So you were born in Israel, and is that where you grew up?
Yeah, I grew up in Israel until I was 19. I guess when it comes to my career, the few defining moments, one was when I was 11, and my parents, in their wisdom, let me watch The Exorcist. In their defense, I did beg and whine, and it can't be that bad, so they let me watch it. It traumatized me for the rest of my childhood. I didn't even finish watching the movie. I couldn't sleep for weeks, and I was so
Can't be that bad.
when you were 11, yeah. And
So you didn't see the end?
well,
You didn't see the happy ending where he sings and holds hands?
I
No?
didn't stick around for that, but and I'm not kidding. I was so traumatized that anything that had to do with ghosts, demons, possession, I couldn't handle at all.
Wow.
When Ghostbusters came out, I couldn't watch it.
Really?
I was so I'm done. I can't handle any of that. So it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I said, okay, now let's revisit all the stuff that I missed.
So parents, if you don't want your kids to watch terrible movies, show them the worst one you can find, and they'll never watch any.
Yeah, you don't want to watch scary movies when you're. Yeah, that oof. Yeah, I still I went and saw It recently, and recently, I guess a month ago or so, and I was like, wow, what a great fun scary movie. And I went to sleep that night, and it was in my dreams and tried to kill me in my dreams. And then the next night, like I couldn't sleep and stayed up all night and trying to fall asleep. And I just kept like
Thinking about that clown.
Thinking about the clown coming to get me. And I'd hear like a creak in the other room, and it would scare the crap out of me. I'm a little bit of a fraidy cat when it comes to movies like that. But I love watching those movies. But then afterwards,
That movie struck a particular chord with me where I remember going to my garage as a kid and getting this fear because it was dark in the garage, and it was like to go change the light bulb in the garage was my job at 7. And I go in there and I turn around and decide, nope, this is too much for me. I'm leaving. And as I turn around to leave and I'm heading towards the door, the lighted door, I get a visual in my head of a fucking clown with red hair, and the difference was he was wearing like a mime suit, like a black, like jazzercise suit or something like that. And I was like, nope, fuck that. That clown's in there, and I don't want any part of him, so I'm leaving.
How old were you?
I demanded my brothers do it instead.
17.
I was 7. No, I was not 17. This was like.
Am I the only one on this podcast that wasn't a pussy as a kid?
I don't know, man. Well, you have to pussy be now.
You have to
Now, yeah.
You have to have a creative imagination for things like this to happen to you.
Okay, so you as a kid.
Yeah.
So that was the first defining moment. Was Exorcist.
Exorcist, yeah.
What comes next?
On a totally different track, when I was 13, I discovered computers. So I got my first personal computer. I taught myself how to program. And when I was 16, I decided I had enough schooling for a lifetime. I quit high school and I started a software company. And we created a graphics program for the Commodore Amiga. I don't know if any of you remember it.
I had an
Amiga.
Commodore.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember Photon Paint. It used
Yes.
to be. So that's,
It had like a spray paint.
it had all sorts of like paint. So that's what I wrote when I was 16.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
So listen up, kids. If you're 16, just drop out of school now.
watch The Exorcist and drop out of school.
Right, exactly.
It worked for me.
That program was the closest I had to street graffiti when I was a kid because I lived in the suburbs. So I would just print out all my graffiti.
Good, we kept you off the streets.
Yeah, definitely.
You just be like, I'm a rebel.
Yeah,
I'm going to use this mouse.
who taped this graffiti up here? We're taking it down.
Someone sprayed anarchy on the Mona Lisa, and it's very pixelated, but it really.
Yeah.
So that's insane, man. Like what a crazy thing to have done at such a young age.
Yeah, and it worked out. We got it distributed, and I ended up making a lot of money for a 17-year-old kid in Israel. And I knew back then that I wanted to move to America, so that gave me the funds, the connections, and when I was 19, I was ready to make the move. So I came here, and for a long time I worked as a computer programmer, and mostly as a video game programmer. And I did it for a long, long time.
What are some of the games you worked on?
One of them was actually Mortal Kombat 3. We talked about it for the PC. I did the PC conversion.
Wow.
I worked on a wrestling game for the Sega.
Which one?
WWF Raw.
Okay.
We're talking like mid-90s.
Yeah, totally.
That's when we were playing them. That's
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone here
Was that
played
on
both
the
of those games.
Genesis or the Saturn?
I think it was the Genesis.
Okay.
And what else? I worked on Turok.
Dinosaur
Oh
Hunter.
my God, I remember that
Yeah.
game.
That's a classic.
And Space Jam.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Turok had my favorite weapon in a video game of all time, the cerebral bore, which was a ball you would throw at your enemy, and it would bore a hole into his head and drill out his brain, and his brain would come spitting out.
Are you serious?
Fantastic game. Yeah.
And Turok, to this day, is remembered. There was a style of navigation on controllers before they had two thumbsticks that they called Turok style controls, because you use the right 4 buttons for up, down, left, and right, and you would look around with your left thumb.
Yep.
And that was called Turok style controls back in the day.
Wow.
And then for my last 9 miserable years of my career, I worked on a baseball game.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and I don't like baseball, and I didn't like the people I was working with, which was one of the catalysts for me wanting to do something different in life. And
You were living my fear of getting into video games. I was like, what if they make me work on a football game or something, and I'm just screwed.
I had a friend that was a game tester on Barbie's Dreamhouse. For a summer, had to play Barbie's Dreamhouse 8 hours a day. That was his.
When I was a kid, there was one of my friend Jared Sandrew, who lives here in Los Angeles. He's a visual effects artist who's worked on a ton of big movies. I think he's been nominated for an Oscar, or some of his stuff has been nominated. His dad was a video game designer and had. We used to get all the new video game systems to their house, and we couldn't afford any of that stuff, but they would get it over, and they'd have parties, and we'd come over and play 3DO and stuff like that in their living room. And he had all the different anytime a new piece would come out, some sort of weird I remember playing Echo the Dolphin and being one of the first people to play Echo the Dolphin, and even as a kid being like I really like the way that this feels good. It just feels good to play this game. I don't know what the point of this game is, but it feels good.
When you're working on programs like that back in that day, are you doing stuff in assembler, or what? How do you program those?
Assembly was like in the very early days. It's more like for fun, just for the challenge of it. But when I started with the photon paint, I started programming in C, and that was pretty much the language I used. And then C++.
Yeah. So for the games, that was all done in C and C++ at that time. Okay.
Wow, that's amazing.
That was my grade point average.
So how do you make the leap into movie making? Like, how does this jump happen?
So since my childhood, putting aside the traumatic Exorcist experience,
sure,
I've always loved movies. I mean, I would watch as many as I could, and later on, when I came to the States, when DVDs came out, I would like devour DVDs, watch them with the commentaries and all the extra features. But it never seemed anything that would be within reach. I could never even fantasize about being a filmmaker, because you need to go to film school, you need to have the connections, you need to convince a studio to give you millions of dollars to make a movie. At that point, I had a career going in video game programming. I'm like, okay, that's what I'm destined to do. But then the other defining moment was when I watched the Blair Witch Project in '99.
Yeah.
And here's these kids from Florida. They did go to film school, but they had no connections. They didn't have any real money. They bought a video camera and they made a movie, and I'm here watching it, and it ended up making $250 million. Yeah. I'm like, it didn't even occur to me that you can make movies. So what? You can just buy a video camera and make a movie, and if it turns out okay, someone may distribute it. I'm like, okay, mental note.
Yeah, like that was, to me, that was the second one I remember sort of that thing where somebody just made a movie for super cheap, because the first one I remember was Clerks, which they made for like $20,000 or something.
Yeah, he made that on his
a credit card.
Yeah, he just ran
and made Clerks, and then Blair Witch was made for like, I don't know, $8,000 or something like that, right?
Like
the production
$60K, which is still nothing.
Yeah, and it's like, after they did more stuff to it, changed the soundtrack and all that once it was at a festival. But I mean, like the original production budget on that was like nothing at all.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing is not only the fact that they did it kind of independently outside the system on a low budget, but it also the found footage aspect of it. I loved it. I thought it was so effective, so smart, so well done. Again, like I didn't know you can make movies like that, and it worked, so at least for me, so well. And then as far as the horror aspect, the fact that it was so minimalistic, you never saw the witch, and it all played on your imagination. I'm like, this is awesome, this is genius. I can't wait to see all these other amazing movies done in that style that will obviously follow, because they just showed us how to do it. Yeah. And then years go by and nothing like that comes out. Yeah. And then several things happened. My job started really, really sucking. I mean, I started like really hating it. I'm like, I got to find something else to do. And then me and my girlfriend at the time moved to a new house in San Diego suburbia, quiet, peaceful. And until then, I lived in apartments. So you always hear things in apartments. You hear your neighbors slamming doors, walking in the hallways. But in a house that's detached, you don't hear anything like that, except we did. So I'm a skeptic. So I wouldn't necessarily jump to the conclusion that we have ghosts or demons. But my girlfriend's like, I heard something walking. There's something in the house, and would like totally freak out. And I started thinking like, well, if you're so worried, we can get a video camera, set it up, let it record at night, and see what happens. Is there something in the house or whatever? And then I thought, how creepy would it be if you actually watch the footage of yourself sleeping and something was happening? It doesn't have to be anything big, something moving, something subtle that you're totally unaware of when you're at your most vulnerable asleep. And I thought that would be so scary and creepy. And the more I thought about that, I'm like, maybe there's a movie there, and maybe I can do it Blair Witch style, just kind of buy a video camera, do it on my own, and see what happens. And if it turns out well, I can ditch my stupid day job.
Yeah. So when did you start write? Did you write a script for it, or did you kind of, it was a lot of improv? Like, how did you put this together?
The first thing I had to do is to figure out can I actually do it. So I bought a video camera. I got a computer, I got editing software, and I just did some test shots. Like, let's try to do some special, like if the scene where Katie is dragged out of bed, like I had a huge teddy bear that my girlfriend had for her nieces. So let's do a test. And I put ropes and dragged it out of bed and try to see if I can mask it out so it looks authentic enough. I'm like, okay, that works. And I tried to do all these other things and to try to get the lighting right. And once I had the technical aspect done that I was happy with it, I figured I can pull it off. Then it was, okay, how do you make a movie? How do you find actors? All that kind of stuff. I didn't know what a script was or how to write one. So I ended up having like my own weird mishmash of a document that had all these color-coded things, like, if it was blue, it was happening at night. And if there was a yellow thing there, it means it's a sound effect. So it was like this kind of bullet-pointed list of what happens in each scene. No one saw it and never showed it to any of the actors. And that's as close as I came to a script.
So you gave them, when you, how did you get the actors, first of all? Let's ask that. Like, how did you actually find them?
So I had to do research. How do you do a casting session? So I went to LA. I was living in San Diego then, and I found some theater space that I could rent. And I made a deal with the theater owners, and then I posted ads in Craigslist, LA Casting, Backstage, all these places. And a lot of people, tons of people, like hundreds of people.
Sure.
Even though there was no credits, I didn't put my name, which would not have helped. I said there's not going to be a script, you're not going to get a lot of money, you're not going to know what's going on. And
just a line out the door in LA for that.
Yeah, right.
And then during the casting session, which was very unusual because there were no sides, no script, and the actors would come by and sit down, and I would say, "Hi, thanks for coming. So tell me, why do you think your house is haunted?" And if they hesitated more than a second, they're gone. But in the cases of Katie and Mika, they're like, Katie's like, oh man, let me tell you, I hear these things happening. It's like you're having a conversation with someone that really believes what they're saying, and she was so real, and so was Mika. So I loved them from the beginning. And then I brought them back for a callback, and like 30 seconds after they met, I'm like, okay, so tell me, how did you guys meet? How long have you guys been together? And they started telling me like the story of how they met 3 years ago, and all these questions about their relationship, and do you have problems in your and if you didn't know and you saw that interview, you would think this is a real couple that's been together for years. They're so good. Actually posted it on my YouTube channel, some of those clips. It's amazing to see how good they were. And
what's your YouTube channel called?
Just Oren Peli.
Oh, okay.
And
check it out.
And one of the moments, like when I saw that, after I did the callback session and I went home and looked at the footage of it, I'm like, if the movie looks this good as far as their acting and what they're bringing to the screen, it can work. And then I kind of internally greenlit it and made them like, okay, now that I have found Katie and Mika, I can do this.
So did you self-fund the entire thing, or did you have people investing? Or?
No, it was only it was originally going to be $10K. Like a lot of projects, it went over budget, so it went up to $15K.
Wow.
Now that's not even that over budget.
No, that's insanity.
That's pretty great.
50%.
Well, still, but like, when you're starting at $1.50 doesn't sound that terrible.
The biggest investment, which I don't consider a part of the budget, is we did a lot of renovations to the house. We put the banisters on the stairwell. We replaced the floor with hardwood floor. We did a lot of stuff to make the house look more cinematic and also to work, because some of the gags needed to have hardwood floor. They wouldn't have worked on.
Now, is this your house?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that also made things
So you
easier.
got a house renovation out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I did pay for it, but
Wow. Here's a.
Do you still have that house now?
No, I sold it a couple of years ago.
Were you able to sell it at a premium because it was the Paranormal Activity house?
And no, we actually was a bidding war on it because it has a large backyard. If you've seen the movie, it's like a third of an acre. So
people don't care about the movie history. They're just like, big backyard.
I don't think it was a factor, but I did have to put, there's a name for it, and it's not a disclaimer. There's another word for it, I forgot. But we had to let people know. We shot the movie Paranormal Activity here. No, the house is not really haunted, but you may have looky-loos coming by, especially on Halloween.
Yeah.
They may annoy you. So, just full disclosure.
Super weird, but on topic thing. Many years ago, I was looking for an apartment in Los Angeles, and I was looking on Craigslist, and I find this guy, and I go and look at his place, and he's got a nice drum set, and he's got a nice kind of thing. Him and me kind of hit it off. His name was Mika, and we talked for a little bit, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm trying to be an actor, and if you lived here, like maybe we could do like little movies together. Maybe we could make something together." And I was like, "Oh, it sounds cool." Seems like a very, very cool guy, and he liked a lot of my stuff. I liked his stuff, and then he ran my credit report at the time, and was like, "Yeah, you can't live
Your credit
here."
report is haunted?
Yeah, my credit report was haunted.
Possessed.
He was like, "Yeah, there's no way you can live here. Sorry, buddy." And I was like, "All right." And like I moved in with Doug, the guy that hated me.
Yeah,
right?
your report is not just possessed, it's repossessed.
Right. Oh, hysterical. Well, point is, years later, I go and see Paranormal Activity in the movie theater, not knowing that Mika is Mika from Paranormal Activity, and he hadn't made the movie yet. And I'm sitting there watching him on screen, and I'm like, wait a second. And I look in my phone, and I see his name in my phone from like back in the day. It just said Mika roommate. And I texted him, and I was like, "Am I watching you in a movie right now?" And he was like, "Yep, I'm in this movie." And like now we're friends, and we still talk now and then, which is so weird. But at the time, and the thing, I know that we're jumping way past production on this movie, but one of the help me on this. At the end of the movie, at the end of the first Paranormal Activity movie, did you guys show credits at the end of the film, or was there no credits?
There might have been versions like for the festivals releases that did have some credits, but yeah, the theatrical release when Paramount finally got the movie out, then we said let's try to be really
no
cool
credits.
And have no credits at all.
Yeah, okay. So I saw the movie in a theater in San Diego, and when the movie ended and there were no credits and it just stopped and the lights came back on, I applauded in the movie theater and laughed and applauded. Like, this is the smart, and everyone in the theater was terrified and and really freaked out, and I was like, these people are geniuses for doing this. Like, no, like because you're waiting for the credits so that you can have a minute to be like, okay, well, that's who worked on it. It's not real, and that's who was the dolly grip, and so I'm going to be okay now.
Honestly, that disappointed me with Blair Witch when they show the credits at the end. And I remember I wasn't alone. The whole theater went,
yeah,
like we'd just been suckered, which we had. But and it was great. But at the same time, I was like, that was kind of a bitch move to put credits on that.
It was so brilliant.
By the way, more than that, we actually, if I remember correctly, had either 60 or 90 minutes of movie that was black, and we had like the little low level rumble going. So and the theater owners were instructed to keep the lights off for like 60 seconds or however long it was, because that was actually part of the movie, and so people sitting there waiting, what the hell is going to happen next, and then just over and the lights come on.
It's so genius, man. Did you get any flack from that as far as like legally, like that you have to show credits or not? Or
no,
really?
we had to go back to the actors that were involved and anyone that would have potentially thought that they can get it credit and modified the contracts, but everyone was on board. Everyone was like, "Oh, that's awesome, that's cool." And Katie and Mika do get sort of a credit because at the very beginning they say, however we phrase it, the San Diego police would like to thank the families of Katie and Mika. So they sort of get a credit that way.
Yeah.
But we figured anyone who really wants to find out what the movie is about and who was involved in the making of it, they can search and find out easily on the internet. But during the movie watching experience, the more we can do to keep you in that atmosphere and not show the how the magician did its tricks, the better we can.
It's genius too. That I mean, what a crazy turnaround for your life, for you to be someone who saw a movie that was a horror film like The Exorcist that set a standard in horror, and then you come back. All these years later, and you re-establish what that is for people, and you're putting people in a position where now they can't sleep at night. Like, that's amazing. What a fucking incredible thing. That's amazing. This episode's done. And I'm just kidding. But that's insane, man. That must feel wonderful.
it worked out pretty well. Can't complain.
Yeah, that's really incredible, man. Hey, man, this is such a fun podcast. You know who I'm missing, though? Mm-hmm. I miss Mike Glazer. I wish Mike Glazer was around.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, look at that. There he is. He's coming in the door right now. Mike Glazer.
Hey. Can I come up? Hey, holy cow.
Whoa, Mike, what's been going on? How you doing?
I was in the desert and I saw an oasis or something. There was a huge bottle of Fireball, and so I just dragged it back here.
Whoa, look how big that's bottle
enormous.
Of Fireball is.
Yeah, I feel like you could swim in it if you don't want to drink it.
Yeah, it's absolutely enormous, man. I mean, I can't believe that you found that out in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let's all have some of that Fireball whiskey.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Man, Fireball whiskey, it makes everything better. Even
almost dying in the desert.
Yeah, but it was worth it. I mean, this is going to taste great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cinnamon whiskey, it makes you feel good even when you're almost about to die in the desert.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back to the show. Now, there's some other rumors that I've heard about the film, which is that at some point the movie was delivered to a very famous director for him to watch it, and then he was it Steven Spielberg or was someone? Is that true? Will you tell us that story?
So, to make a very long story short,
Sure.
DreamWorks were interested in the film. But
so you sent the film off after you finished it.
It got into the hands of a young executive there who became obsessed with the movie. She kept bugging her boss, who was the president of production at the time, to watch the movie. He watched it, he loved it, but they didn't know what to do with it because DreamWorks is not really in the business of acquisitions. They don't buy films. Yeah. So they weren't sure what to do with it, so they suggested that we do a remake. And they would let me direct the remake and do a big budget version of it. And I said, no, this is the version that needs to be. There's no point in doing it again. So I rejected the deal in thinking that, we'll find someone to distribute the movie. And we couldn't find anyone. So after a long time, that was the only option on the table. And we said, okay, we'll do it if we can do the remake and keep the original version of the movie on the DVD as an extra, so at least that way people can see it. Yeah. And if it's okay with Katie and Mika, and I told Katie and Mika I'll do everything I can to recast you guys in the remake, but also do everything I can to sabotage the remake so that they'll release the original movie. Yeah.
I'll be a very bad director at this time. Yeah.
Well, even before the directing, and so what we ended up doing, we ended up having a test screening. And everyone at DreamWorks, except for Spielberg, but everyone there in management and all the executives and president had to be at the screening. And when they saw that it played very well in front of an audience, that's the last time they talked about doing a remake and said, okay, let's just release it. Mm-hmm. And before, which is very unusual because, like I said, they don't ever buy movies. So they said, well, if we're going to actually release it under the DreamWorks label, we need to get the approval of one more guy, Steven Spielberg. Mm-hmm. So a couple of days later, I get a call on my cell phone from the president of productions at DreamWorks, which was pretty unusual. I mean, at that point, I'm just a nobody in San Diego, and I would only talk to my agent or my lawyer. So he calls me and he's like, hey, Oren, we love your movie and we want to release it, and we just need to get the okay from Steven Spielberg. So he watched your movie last night. That's the only thing that I ever heard. That's already the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah. Right,
yeah.
Steven Spielberg watched my little movie. But then it continues, and he stopped watching it halfway through. And then he takes a deliberate pause and says, because he got too scared because he was at home alone. And he finished watching it this morning, and he loved it, and he wants to release it.
Wow!
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was
one of the most surreal moments of my life.
I've heard rumors that he made someone come take it away from him, in a bag. That he was like, I can't even touch this movie anymore. It's too scary to hold on to.
So the story that I originally heard, and then I heard it from him directly when we met, is that he watched it in his bedroom. I guess he has a nice home theater in his bedroom, I would imagine. And so he finished watching it that morning, and somehow the bedroom door got locked from the inside, and supposedly that's something that can never happen because there's no way to lock it from the inside unless you're inside, and there was no one else in the house, and he had to get a locksmith, and it's like a big fancy wooden door, and it was like a real bitch to get it off. So finally he got into the house, and he took the DVD, put it in like a trash bag, and took it to the office and gave it to someone. There was like, I don't ever want to see this DVD again. Keep it away from me.
So now, let's talk about the filming process for a minute, because you're down in San Diego filming a movie. Did you have to go get permits and all that kind of stuff, or you just did it because you're inside your house and you're like, nobody's going to know?
Yeah, no permits, no nothing. And the scary thing is that when we did I think maybe when Katie is getting dragged out of bed, or something else where there was a lot of screaming going on, and we forgot to close the windows, because usually we wouldn't run the air conditioning because it would interfere with the audio. So at some point we said, let's just open a window to get some airflow, and we forgot to close it. So at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., Katie's screaming her head off like she's getting murdered, and no one heard, no one came to ask what's going on.
Oh my God!
Good
That's
neighbors.
you could kill people in the neighborhood. Nobody else. There's seemed like a nice guy.
But no, everything was under the radar. No one knew. By the way, I should mention, so when I did my paint program when I was 16, I told everyone, hey, I'm quitting school to write this piece of software. And everyone told me, you're crazy. You're throwing your life away. Who are you, a 16-year-old kid in Israel who's going to compete with the companies in America? I'm like, I don't know. I have an idea and I know how to do it. So let's see what happens. Yeah. And everyone just kept telling me that I'm an idiot and I'm wasting my time. So when I decided I was going to do Paranormal Activity, I said, you know what? Why bother telling anyone? They're going to tell me, what do you know what to do? What do you know about filmmaking? You don't know how to make films. Why are you wasting all this money? So I'm like, I'm not going to tell a single soul. So except for the few people that were actually involved in the making of the movie, no one knew. The only reason my parents knew is because they came to visit me a few weeks before and they saw me making the preparations. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even told them. But the neighbors didn't know. Not a single person knew until much, much later.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
During that filming process, are you sort of editing as it goes along? Like, are you taking all the footage and putting it in your computer and doing it in Avid or Premiere or whatever you're using at the time? Or
as much as I could, and it was actually Sony Vegas on a PC. Sometimes I had to do it because there could be scenes where, let's say, the door is moving at night, and then in the morning they're watching that footage. So I would have to take the footage, bring it into my editor, edit the scene together, and also do the visual effects on the fly, pretty much remove, because you would see me like crawling and moving the door. So I had to do all of that so the footage will be ready for them in the morning to watch.
Oh, to watch for the next scene.
Yeah, because we're actually filming them watching what happened. So I didn't get a lot of sleep that week, and some other stuff I would just kind of throw together really roughly just to get a sense. Okay, it looks like this works, but maybe we're missing here. Let's get a few more lines. Let's do the scene again. That kind of stuff.
So how long did it take, that whole process?
So from the very beginning, I would say the pre-production, the whole part of me studying how to do this. Casting and everything was about a year. The first shoot, I would call it, the original shoot, was about a week. And then I spent about 10 months in post. So editing, visual effects, sound mix, and it also included a lot of reshoots. So I would get a cut of the movie together. I would get together with Katie and Mika, and we would watch it like, something here is not working. We're missing a scene here to explain something, or this could be done better. When do you guys have a weekend? Come down to San Diego. We'll shoot for another day or two, and we would kind of patch it, until we felt like we got it right.
How big was your crew?
It was myself, my girlfriend at the time, because she didn't really have a choice. I said, we're shooting a movie in our house, so you might as well help. Yeah. And my best friend, Amir, who I've known since I was 13 in Israel, he worked on that paint program with me, and we worked together at our video game company. And so one day I told him, I'm going to film a movie in my house. I told him the story. Do you want to help? He's like, that sounds awesome. I don't know anything about filmmaking. I'm like, perfect. Neither do I.
Yeah. Did you have your day job while this was all going on?
Yeah. I kept my day. So everything had to be like in my spare time. So
wow.
Jeez,
and I should mention the one thing I could never figure out how to do was makeup. I bought a makeup because I wanted to do everything on my own sort of thing, and I got a makeup kit and I tried to apply it on myself. And after a few tries, I'm like, nah, that doesn't look good. I need professional. So I hired a makeup lady to help for one day.
Wow. What now? Like actor wise, did you have to when a movie like this comes out? and it does. It's like one of the biggest, or is the biggest. It is the biggest. I just had a stroke. By the way,
I don't think it's the biggest. No, but it did okay.
It's one of the biggest box office in comparison to the amount of money spent on the movie.
Just say it's the greatest movie of all time.
It's the greatest movie of all time.
Now that you've made the greatest movie of all time, go on. What was the next part?
How does something like that work as far as like how you're compensated for the work that you put into a movie like this? Because if DreamWorks is releasing it, like how did you guys work something like that out?
We had a very nice deal, mostly because I don't think anyone foresaw that it was going to do that well. Right. So we ended up getting a deal that if the movie did okay, we would have turned out okay. But because it did so well, I think if they would have known, we wouldn't have gotten such a good deal.
Right.
So yeah, we did all right.
That's
nice.
Amazing. And one of the things that I loved about what you did with this film, and it's the same thing you did with Paranormal Activity 2, which also was a fucking great movie, what I loved is that you did the same kind of thing that Ed Neumeyer did on RoboCop and on Starship Troopers, is having something really horrifying and scary happen, and then you'd cut back to daytime and you'd do funny stuff. You'd have them improving, being silly, saying funny things as a couple, and then slowly, your daytime stuff becomes just as scary as the nighttime stuff. So that way you're lulling everyone into a false sense of security. And so when they see it when they're watching the movie and it hits nighttime, they're like, oh shit, something else is gonna happen.
And if you like pool vacuum cleaners, part 2 is the movie for you.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, though,
that's what I always were like, because we were working on a parody movie.
Oh yeah, we worked on a movie, by the way, called. You're going to love this. It's called Paranormal...
It was 30 Days...
30 Days of Paranormal Activity.
Something in the night that...
Hang on. I'll look it up.
You should know the names of your movies.
It's not worth watching.
It's not. This is not a good movie, but we did do some funny stuff. 30 Nights... 30 Nights of Paranormal. That's what it was called. It was a parody movie of Paranormal Activity. This is a movie that we both worked on. We were both punch-up writers to add comedy to it. But it was called 30 Nights of Paranormal Activity with the devil inside the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Yeah.
Oh, what a fucking nightmare!
It's one of those titles. Yeah.
But here's the thing about that movie. A bit that we wrote that's in that movie that is still to this day one of my favorite things. It's a moment you guys did in your film where you had a fan that was like an oscillating fan.
Oh, that was Paranormal 3.
Yeah, mm-hmm. So in Paranormal 3, you attach a video camera to an oscillating fan and it moves between 2 different rooms, right? And so, as it goes back and forth, scary thing is happening in one side of the camera, in one room, and then it happens to then the scary things in the other side of the room, right? So in ours, what we did was we had a lady sitting and working at a computer, and then the fan would move to the other side of the room, and there would be nothing there, and it would go back to her, and then she's still writing, and then it goes back to the other room, and now there's a camel. Just
weird stuff,
like an actual camel just standing in the living room, and then it goes back to her, and instead of her, it's just it's like an old man panning for gold, in the living room, and then it goes back, and it's a Mexican band. What's the band called? Mariachi band, just singing, and it was so funny, and it was great.
That's the funny part of the movie. That's the only funny part of that movie.
Skip to that part.
Skip to that.
Just skip to that one moment.
Stop watching after that. You've seen everything you need to see from that movie.
Anyways, movie comes out. It's an enormous hit. How quickly do they go? We got to do another one.
Pretty much right away.
Yeah. What was the difference in the second?
What was the opening weekend for that movie? What was box office
for Paranormal 1?
Yeah.
Paranormal 1.
It was almost nothing because we started very small. We started only with midnight screenings and only in 7 or 8 college towns, and it slowly grew. So then the next week it was 20 cities, and then 40, and then 100, and finally when we
did you think it was going to end at something it's 20 cities now? great, and that's just what it was. And it was nice. But like, did you see it was going to be in 4,000 theaters in a month? Or
we didn't get quite to 4th. I think the most we had was 2,300. But I knew based on the traction and the buzz that it was getting that it was going to keep growing. And at that point, I felt pretty confident that it's going to do well. So I didn't really have too much to worry about. But at the most, it never really had I think it did like 21 million, but that was like the 4th or 5th weekend. And then I think we were number 1 maybe for 1 weekend.
Yeah, it said like opening weekend was $77,000 was limited opening weekend. That's like 12 theaters.
That's already a huge profit.
Very small.
Yeah.
The budget, according to Box Office Mojo, budget was $15,000. The movie made $193 million, which is it's ridiculous
crazy
amount of money for a
so
movie
at what
like that.
point were you able to go into the job where you were making a baseball video game and be like, hey,
suck it, baseball.
I made this little movie you might have heard of called Paranormal Activity, so you can suck my dick while I leave.
Did they all freak out when you
how did you tell them?
How did you tell them?
Yeah. Well, so it's more complex than that, because from the point that DreamWorks, if we're going back to the story, said, okay, we'll release the movie, it took another year and a half for the movie to actually get out, because then the movie ended up at Paramount. Paramount wasn't sure what to do with it, so I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to quit my day job. I still need a paycheck. And so I kept working, and I wouldn't say I was the most motivated employee ever, but I did my job. And it took them a year to find out that I made the movie. So I guess someone Googled me or whatever, because I still didn't tell anyone. So we're now at the beginning of 2009, I think. Or 2008, I'm not sure. And beginning of 2009, and they found out about the movie, and then it becomes their goal to get me fired, because they didn't appreciate the fact that I have a side hobby. Maybe they made the connection between that and me not having the best attitude. So they went on a mission to get me fired, which is, I don't know if you guys heard of PEEP, Performance Improvement Plan. So they put me on PEEP, and I got on that PEEP thing, and I knew that there was, basically for sure they're going to fire me. They gave me one task that was entirely unrealistic, and I know that because even years after I've already been gone, no one has been able to implement that. And I had to take a few days off here and there to deal with Paranormal Activity. This is when things were finally getting heated up with Paramount. They were going to do test screening to the vice chairman, and maybe this is when it's actually going to happen. So I had to take some days off to go to LA and get the cut ready. And they're like, well, what about your PEEP? You have a deadline on your PEEP. And I'm like, well, I still have a lot of time off. I'll worry about my PEEP. And they wouldn't give me the time off. So I took it off anyways, and they fired me.
Wow. Oh my God. That's amazing. That's incredible.
It's like, I'm going to go hang out with Steven Spielberg, so I don't care.
I love it. How did this, the success from these other movies as well? Because after the first,
I have an important question.
Please.
I'm sorry. After that happened and you made all your money, did you buy the company and have it burned to the ground?
The company is Sony. I don't think I have that kind of money. I did okay, but I don't think I can buy Sony.
Like, were they mad?
Sony, I was kidding.
Were they mad because Paramount had the movie and they didn't have it, and that's what they're like? Wait a minute, he's making money from Paramount. That's not fair.
I would have been happy at the time to sell it to Sony, but nobody wanted the movie.
Mike, you really helped us lead into our new sponsor. The Nighttime Show has to say a quick thing. Our new sponsor for the Nighttime Show, Sony. Thanks again, Sony, for making great
I forgot
baseball,
to read the copy
video
you gave
games.
me.
Please read
Sony,
the copy.
We're not hacked anymore. Please buy our products again.
No, you were doing when you did these movies. Even though you did them with DreamWorks, Paramount was the distributor. Is that right?
Yes. So DreamWorks were going to release the movie. We had a release date. We had a deal. The deal wasn't totally signed yet, but we were negotiating. Then something happened. Katzenberg and Sumner Redstone had an argument about something. They decided they don't like each other anymore, and they split up. Because Paramount was the distributor for DreamWorks. So the movie would have been a DreamWorks movie through the channel. Exactly. So they decided that they're going to break up, And in the custody, they had, I think, like 40 projects that were in various stages of development.
No.
So half of them stayed at DreamWorks, and half of them went to Paramount. The good thing is that the two people, that young executive and the president of production at DreamWorks, moved to Paramount, and they took Paranormal Activity with them.
Smart.
So they were championing, they were like pushing really hard, for Paranormal Activity, which they were familiar with, but no one at Paramount knew anything about it. And they were trying to get Paramount to, get excited about the movie, come to a screening, and they were dealing, with Mission Impossible and Star Trek and Transformers.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't care about my crappy little homemade video.
Yeah.
So
Right.
like every 2 weeks, I call my agent, what's going on? Like, well, they're going to have a meeting and they're going to talk about it in a couple of weeks. I'm like, okay, I'll wait a couple of weeks. And in the meantime, I know that I'm on thin ice at my day job. And 2 weeks later, what happened? Well, they didn't get around to it because they had problems with Transformers. They'll talk about it in 2 weeks. And just keeps doing it for like a year, more than a year.
God.
Imagine my whole life hinging on them having problems with Transformers.
Or whatever. It just
Optimus
was
Prime
never-
isn't doing what we wanted to do.
Yeah. Oh,
and so
no.
you're going to have to shine it on a little bit longer.
Jeez,
Yeah, so that was miserable because like the not knowing part is the worst, because I'm like, okay, if you don't want to distribute it, give it back to me and maybe I'll find someone else. Or
So you were basically the kid in the divorce.
Yeah.
For that. Oh, man.
Wow. That is nerve-wracking. That must have been very, oof.
Yeah, the good thing is that by the time that I got fired, that was right around the time that they did finally have the test screening, and all the higher-ups at Paramount saw it, and they kind of sort of came on board in the sense of like, sure, we won't put any money behind it, but let's put it out on a few screens and see what happens. Which ended up...
Worked out great.
Yeah, especially thanks to the Paramount interactive marketing department. It was really their job to try to get the hype.
I remember
and the
them having a pretty aggressive.
if you remember the Demand It campaign, they did so many genius stuff, and they're
They did
really
some really cool stuff on I would go on Ain't It Cool News at the time, and they had these really cool banners that would like make it look like the page had been possessed and stuff like that. Yeah.
They were very clever, and they deserve so much credit for the success of the movie.
That's really amazing.
I'm just picturing an executive. I don't have time to watch your movie. Megatron won't come out of his trailer.
Now, there's we're going to sidestep Paranormal Activity for just a second, because that movie is, all those films, very, very successful, and you've produced on all of them, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, was there a reason you decided on the second one or the third one to not direct, that you wanted to bring in other directors to direct on that type of stuff?
I mean, for me, originally, it was just going to be a way to, I love the concept of Paranormal Activity. I wanted to do it. I thought it would be fun. I thought it would be a way for me to get out of my stupid day job.
Yeah.
And if it worked out, it was like I won the lottery. And after you win the lottery, you go back to work. I'm like, no, I'm done. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So when the studio said they want to do the sequels, I'm like, okay, awesome. Just remember where to send the royalties.
Yeah.
And good luck.
Hell yeah.
But then there were some issues with Paranormal 2, and they kind of said, please come back, help us out. So I came back and kind of help as much as I could. And I stayed somewhat involved in the other sequels. I was never the writer or the director, but I would be in the meetings and story meetings. Sometimes they would listen to me, sometimes they wouldn't, but I would be somewhat involved.
Would you go to the story meeting and be like, okay, so now you got to highlight that with red and then highlight that with yellow.
Yellow. That one's how yellow goes.
That's a blue.
I went with Miko was in the third one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he was back in for the.
Wait a second. He was in the second one. Second one. I'm not sure about the third one. Katie was in the.
Katie was. I went with Mika as his date to the, in a sweet way, to the second.
Isn't it
or
always
the,
a sweet way?
It really always is. We went to the ArcLight to the first screening. I met you there with Brian Witten, who was on our podcast.
Oh, okay.
And went into an early screening of it and watched, and was high fiving. What's his name? The guy who was sitting in front of us was the director of Saw. James Wan.
Oh yeah.
Was sitting there and was like, "This is the greatest thing I've ever seen." He was super into the movie, and I loved it. But sidestepping away from Paranormal Activity for a second, you also made a film called Chernobyl Diaries, which I watched also, which was a totally badass, like, cool movie. Like, I really enjoyed that film. And then I did talk a little with Brian, and I think I did talk a little with you about Area 51. Was it Area 51?
Yeah.
Yeah, which I know was kind of like a whole nother situation on its own. Like, it was kind of the opposite type of situation where there was like studio problems and issues with them. Do you mind talking about that a little bit? Is that okay?
To talk about it freely, I'll have to be really mean.
Please.
But no, but I don't want to do that. I will say that was probably the most miserable experience I've had, other than my stupid day job. I did it while Paranormal was being released. If it was any later, I would have not done it, especially not the way it ended up being done. It was like everything, the way it was done was the wrong way. It was the total opposite of Paranormal Activity. And it was just a horrible, horrible mess. I mean, just to give you a few like facts, trying not to be too mean to people, but what ended up happening is that because of so many issues, and I'll take some responsibility for them as the director, but we ended up not being able to get a lot of things right. A lot of things were missing. Finally, we showed it to the studio, and I thought that it was in pretty bad shape, but salvageable, kind of like how Paranormal 2 and Paranormal 3 and all these other movies have been. And, okay, it's a mess. How do we fix it? They said, why don't you reshoot the entire movie from scratch for a budget of $700K, including post and all visual effects and everything. So basically, we ended up reshooting 90 to 95% of the film for $700K with a storyline dictated to us by the studio. And then when we were done, because it was done so cheaply and poorly, a lot of scenes just were unusable. So we ended up... Oh, and I should also mention that, just to give you an idea of where we were at, when it came to shoot the third act, I had to go to Israel because my dad had to go through surgery. It would have cost $10,000 to delay the shoot. So we decided we don't have that money. Let's just have someone else direct the third act.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff we were dealing with. So someone else directed the third act, and so much of what we ended up redoing, we couldn't use, that we ended up submitting a cut of 85 minutes, which barely got to 85 minutes. And they said, no, it needs to be 90 minutes. We're like, we barely
we don't have 5 more minutes of footage.
Yeah, we don't have 5 more minutes. They're like, we don't care. It needs to be 90 minutes.
Really long credit sequence.
So it was already with a long credit sequence.
Wow.
So what we did, we went to the original shoot. We grabbed 5 semi-random minutes and threw them into this cut. And we figured, you know what, they're never going to release it like that. This is just to satisfy the delivery requirements. And then we'll get back into it. We'll reshoot it. We'll fix it. And it ended up sitting on the shelf as is for 4 years. And then they said, hey, let's dump it now on Netflix and whatever. And I begged them and said, let's fix it. My name is on it. I'll finance the reshoots. We'll figure something out. And they're like, no, don't bother. We'll just dump it out like that.
Wow.
So yeah, that was the most miserable experience I've had.
Did it make you want to take a break from filmmaking, or did it make you want to do more? Like what? How did you?
I mean,
react
it
to
made me want to never work with certain people.
Yeah.
But
I get that.
But it really depends because, for example, although I decided kind of like okay, I'm cashing out. I don't need to do any more projects. But Brian kind of conned me into doing Chernobyl Diaries because we talked about the idea, and he's like, "Hey, let's do this. This will be fun." I'm like, "No, I don't want to do this." He's like, "No, you won't have to do anything. We'll just I'll do it all. We'll get another director." And cuts to like a year later, we're in Serbia, and someone,
oh my god,
and another director is filming, but I'm still there. Brian sucked me into it, but we had a blast. I mean, we had so much fun doing this because it was with Brian, and the director was great, and the crew was great. So I had a blast. So an experience can be a lot of fun, or it can be miserable. So I wouldn't say that one experience totally turned me off, but definitely made me a lot more cautious about choosing who to work with.
Do you want to do more films? Do you have any interest in doing more?
No, I think I'm done for now.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
do you want to make a better baseball game?
Definitely not.
When it comes to the app that you're working on, an app right now, or you have an app out right now?
We have it out. We did sort of like a soft launch. It's out there. Anyone can download it. And now we are working on adding a lot of features based on feedback that we got. And we're starting a marketing campaign that we will launch in a couple of months.
So what is the app? Tell us about it.
It's called Spot. Anyone who's curious can download it at spot.events.
To find your dog.
It could be used for that.
Oh, okay.
But
now we're talking.
The
only if it's a Dalmatian.
Yeah, right.
You could probably use it for dog-related activities. The idea is that you can create local events for any purpose. It could be, to meet other people to go hiking with.
That's cool.
If you need a tennis partner, if you want to get like a singles group to go out to watch movies or anything like that for community-related events. So we just wanted to create a tool that's very fun and easy to use if you're looking for new friends, if you're looking to meet new people, you're new in town. And so that's what I'm focusing on this time.
That's amazing. That's
I always
so cool.
need a tennis partner. So
yeah.
that will be very helpful for me.
Well, no, it makes a lot of sense, especially in a city like Los Angeles, where you're trying to meet new people, and it's hard to meet people. Using an app like that, or in New York City, big cities, finding partners to go and do paintball with, or to go hiking with, or to any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so and anything your
cupcake eating contest, anything.
Yeah, anything you're.
What'd you say? A cupcake eating contest?
Yeah,
that's.
You can organize one.
I've beaten Steven in a cupcake eating contest. I'll tell you.
You did beat me in a cupcake eating contest.
Yes.
We could have used that app, and maybe someone would have
had some real competitors.
Well, yeah,
use it for the next one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just seeing a guy stepping off a train from Texas. I come here to eat real cupcakes. I'm gonna take your trophy.
I know like 20 competitive professional competitive eaters now that could wipe the floor with me.
That's hysterical. Yeah. So, how is your life now? Like, what do you do in a what's a typical day for you, Oren? Like, what do you do in a typical day?
Well, I have 2 baby daughters.
Oh, wow.
So that's the main focus of my life.
How old?
One is 10 months old, and one is almost 2.5.
So you still don't get any sleep, even after making movies?
Not too much, not too much. They sleep okay through the night, so sometimes I'm lucky. But so most of an average day is I'm at home all day. Maybe we go out and do something. And in all of my spare time, I work on the app. So it could be, a few hours here, and then they take a nap. I got a couple more hours, and then they go to sleep, and now I can get back to it. So it kind of revolves around them. But that's one of the reasons that filmmaking is not really compatible. I can't go to Serbia for 3 months, and leave them at home. Yeah. So I'm like, I need to simplify my life and develop.
Unless you make more movies in your house. Then you could do it that way.
Yeah, but it's so much work.
Yeah, no, that's a lot. So
now instead of demons terrorizing you while you sleep, it's small children.
Exactly.
Do you still see Brian Whitten very often?
Yeah. We're in touch. I moved out of the city, so not as often. I'm out in suburbia. But we're still in touch, and still one of my best friends.
Back in suburbia with the ghosts.
Yeah,
where the ghosts.
Now, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in Hollywood to get a movie made. Were you harassed by any ghosts during the making of that movie?
Not as far as I'm aware of.
No, okay.
Good. No inappropriate touching from ghosts. Nothing like that.
No, at least not from ghosts.
Thank God for that.
Harvey Weinstein just dropped by just for no good reason.
Check it on the set.
My God in heaven. Have you ever had any interaction with him? You ever met him?
I met him once briefly at a party and just shook his hand. But at that point, I didn't know about the sex pervert stuff. But he had enough of a reputation, just as far as being,
he's known for being mean
evil to filmmakers. That I had a list of people that I would never want to work with because life's too short. So he was on that list.
He's like, are there any sexy ghosts on that set?
Oh my God. What about how's your family, your parents? How did they react to the success of you doing these movies?
They're all very, very happy and proud. So
that's so cool, man. That's amazing. Well, listen, getting a chance to sit down with you has been really incredible. Are you on social media? Do you have a Twitter or an Instagram or any of that type of stuff?
Yeah, I have all of those. I don't use them too much.
Do you know what your Twitter account
Twitter,
is?
I think it's Oren_Peli.
Okay, great. Well, we will tweet and post this. And
where do people get your app again?
spot.events.
Spot.events.
All right, yeah, we'll check that out for sure. That's amazing. Mike, what about you? Where can people find you in the world?
I'm on all social media at Mike Black Attack, and I've just added PS4. If you're a gamer, I'm at Humorous Black, and if you're on Xbox, it's None More Black with zeros instead of O's.
Oh, okay, all right. What about you there, Matt Wecker?
You can find links to everything at funnymatt.com, or if you're a big aficionado of swimming pool vacuum cleaners, you want to tell me why my comments were hurtful, tell me that at mattwalkersucks.com.
Absolutely. You can always get me at Steven Glickman, STEPHEN Glickman on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Xbox One. You can challenge me on Grand Theft Auto, and I'm constantly on there playing when I should be writing and editing. It's Steven Glickman, STEPHEN Glickman. So it's fun because then people are like, "Hey, Steven Glickman, I'm gonna fucking kill you," you know, and it's like a 7-year-old, and you're like, "Great!"
and then he kills,
and then he blows my head off repeatedly.
You suck at this game, Steven Glickman.
I really do. Well, Oren, thanks again for haunting all of our nightmares and helping us have some new dreams. This has been a lot of fun. Don't forget to subscribe to the Nighttime Show podcast, leave comments, and share. We love you guys. Thanks for listening, and good night.